What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my 2024 Oscar predictions. Of course, these are my early predictions. I'm doing them a year in advance, more or less, or at least, eight months, 10 months before award season really kicks off. So in advance, but I'm going to go through over 40 films that I think have a really good chance of being in the Oscar picture, the awards race next year. Of course, a lot of caveats with this. A lot of these movies do not actually have release dates yet, so they could certainly not be this award season. I'm going to talk about movies that I've mentioned in the past with this segment that are actually coming out this year and I thought were coming out in the past. Not all these movies have distribution yet. So like there's a lot of things up in the air about this, but in general, these are the films that I think are you can be most confident in expecting to be around next year in the awards race. And it's quite the list of celebrated actors, celebrated filmmakers, people with past Oscar success. Some of these movies have been seen in the festival setting already, and they're well liked. So there's, I think, a lot to be excited about in the next year of film. So that's kind of why I want to do this now. It's really fun. Just a few notes. Some stuff we know is definitely not coming would be Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, which is supposed to come out in 2024. That's obviously still being made. Bong Joon-ho's Parasite follow-up, Mickey 17, is dated for 2024, as well as George Miller's Mad Max prequel Furiosa is also dated for 2024. So those are three movies that probably would be in the mix in some fashion, but that'll be in the future. So just keep that in mind. But we got a lot of stuff to get into. So let's just go into my background here. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is dated for July, starring Cillian Murphy as well as Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., and a million other people. It's like everyone in Hollywood, basically. Obviously, Nolan is a celebrated filmmaker. You can expect at minimum that this movie will contend in all the down the line technical categories. But if it's really good, you would expect a Best Picture uh, notion as well, and perhaps some acting nods. I think it's kind of obvious that Oppenheimer will be more words friendly than a movie like Tenet, which is obviously testing to many viewers in terms of comprehension. I love Tenet, of course, but Oppenheimer is much more traditional. So I think we can easily bank on Oppenheimer being in the awards mix in some fashion. Can't wait for that movie. Um, Along these lines, something else you could easily bank, I think, would be Dune Part 2 coming out at the end of the year. Dune 1 was a huge figment of, award season 2 years ago. And, Denis Villeneuve, Chalamet, Zendaya, the huge cast. Like, I think we can expect at minimum that this will have down ballot consideration, best picture consideration. But yeah, I think it's pretty safe. And Austin Butler is in the mix now because Dune Part 2, he is joining the scene and joining the sequel and seemingly a flashy role. So he could perhaps follow up Elvis with a supporting actor nom. Who can say? That's really exciting though, for sure. Some other big stuff here. Let's talk about Killers of the Flower Moon, the Martin Scorsese movie from Apple, starring Jesse Plemons and Leonardo DiCaprio, among others. Talked about this several years now in the awards mix. It seems like it's going to premiere soon and come out this year on Apple. Obviously, Scorsese, Leo, Jesse Plemons, like it goes without saying, this is in the mix. Can't wait. How about Ridley Scott's film Napoleon, formerly titled Kit Bag, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby? Seems kind of obvious that this will be in the mix. It's Ridley, it's Joaquin. Enough said. Vanessa Kirby, Best Actress nominee as well. Keeping it moving, Wes Anderson has another movie with Asteroid City with a huge cast that you'll come to expect from Wes. Certainly have to keep your thoughts with him. How about Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie? We've been waiting for the follow up to The Favorite, which of course was a big Oscar contender. Yorgos, this would be Poor Things, reuniting with Emma Stone. It also has Willem Dafoe in it, Mark Ruffalo. I think this is a pretty obvious one. It's not dated yet. This is something I was thinking about might come out last year. It didn't, but I have a pretty good feeling we'll get Poor Things this year. How about Michael Mann? Not a guarantee, not at this stage of his career, but Michael Mann, Ferrari, starring Adam Driver as Enzo Ferrari. I think that one's certainly a contender. Bradley Cooper, his directorial follow-up to A Star is Born, which of course was Oscar contender. This time around, Cooper is also starring in the film once again as Leonard Bernstein. And this film is Maestro for Netflix. I think this is an obvious one. Cooper directing, acting, Netflix Best Picture. I feel like this is an obvious one, assuming this movie's good. Like Netflix will be riding this movie. Netflix will also be riding David Fincher's The Killer. Fincher's first film since Mank, hasn't been that long, but it's the return of Michael Fassbender. Fassbender hasn't been in a movie since Dark Phoenix in 2019, and before that, it was all these movies in 2017. Fassbender has been away for some time, and he is going to be back in a Fincher film, The Killer. Killer is probably not the most awards friendly film though, so just keep that in mind. But it'll certainly be in the mix in some regard, as will Fassbender's other film this year, which will be from Searchlight. Next Goal Wins, the new Taika Waititi film. Of course, Taika, ton of attention from the Oscars with Jojo Rabbit. This is the follow up to that. This is a movie that, again, like Killers of the Flower Moon, we've been talking about in the awards conversation for some time. It's finally coming out this year. It is dated. This is a movie that was filmed in 2019, you know, but they did some reshoots in 2021, which replaced Army Hammer with Will Arnett. It's finally coming out. Next Goal Wins. To me, I'm just happy. Like it's a shit. It was a shit or get off the pot thing. Like we got to see this movie. So another one. I think it's a big contender. How about Renato Marcus Green? You know, he made King Richard, which was a huge awards contender 2 years ago. His new movie is a Bob Marley biopic, still untitled, but it's been filmed, and that's starring I don't know, Kingsley Benadire as Bob Marley, one of our great new actors, and assumingly a transformative performance. You know how the Oscars and the award season love when actors play real people. I think that's a pretty obvious one to bank on here. Let's see. Got a bunch of other stuff still. How about The Book of Clarence? Little more under the radar pick. This is from James Samuel, his follow up to The Harder They Fall, reuniting with Lakeith Stanfield. It's supposed to be more of an epic film, so that's one to keep an eye on. I think for sure. Hard to say what to predict there, but I think one to keep an eye on for sure. I'll just acknowledge like Mission Impossible 7 is coming out. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 from Chris McQuarrie, starring, of course, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was a big fixture of awards season this past year with, of course, Top Gun Maverick. I probably would bank against this having anything beyond below the line contention, especially with Cruise snubbing the Oscars and not showing up to the ceremony. But if it's like the best action movie ever made, yeah, perhaps it could be nominated for Best Picture. But I would just say bank against that one. Um, Something that perhaps is not on a lot of people's radar at all, but that would be Warner Brothers is doing like a remake, kind of reimagining of the Color Purple musical, and that's coming out in December. It's being clearly positioned as a awards contender, so that one seems kind of obvious to me. Moving right along, why don't we go to A24? You know, the studio that just dominated the 2022 Oscars. You know, last week, setting the record for most above the line wins by a studio ever, sweeping the top six thanks to Everything Everywhere and Brendan Fraser's performance in The Whale. We have to pay attention to A24. We have to pay attention to movies that perhaps are not as traditionally awards friendly as history might have told us. Things have changed. A24, I think, is in a great position once again to be in the mix. I think the number one contender, kind of obviously, would be Past Lives, the directorial debut of Celine Song, starring Greta Lee, who I've liked a lot in comedic roles on in shows like Hacks, but this movie got absolute raves out of Sundance. Is coming out in a few months. This could be one of the first like early release, like Everything Everywhere movies that sustains itself throughout the whole season and is there come award season because it's coming out, I think, like June. So Past Lives seems like a must see at the very least and probably an awards contender for sure. Also from A24, we have Sofia Coppola's next movie, Priscilla. We're going back to the Elvis well, but this time it's about Priscilla Presley, played by Kaylee Spaney, with Jacob Elordi this time playing Elvis. So maybe the lack of distance from Elvis in the awards race could hurt Priscilla. But if it's good, you know, Sophia Coppola, of course, is a well regarded filmmaker in the industry. So one to keep an eye out for. Also from A24, we have Showing Up, the new Kelly Reichardt movie with Michelle Williams and Hong Chow, who of course just got nominated. Both of them did. This movie, you know, was seen back at Cannes 2022, so people have seen it, people like it. So another one from A24. You know, I love Reichardt's last movie, First Cow. I'd probably bet against it being an Oscar contender just because like Kelly Reichardt makes smaller, like humanistic movies. If you're picking an A24 film to be the contender, it's clearly Past Lives as things stand right now, but it should be acknowledged for sure. Also, we have Beau is Afraid coming out in April from A24, Ari Aster's follow up to Midsommar, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Probably it's probably too weird and too horror adjacent to realistically be an awards contender, but worth shouting out for sure. Also, we have You Hurt My Feelings from A24, Nicole Holofcener's next movie starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Wouldn't bank on this one, but Holofcener was in the mix recently with Can't You Ever Forgive Me with Melissa McCarthy a few award seasons back, so it's acknowledged that it could be there. And last one would be Alex Garland's Civil War, starring Kirsten Dunst. No guarantee this one comes out. Garland did release a movie in 2022, of course, but something to keep an eye out for. Alex Garland is one of those really unique filmmakers that does all kinds of weird stuff. So who knows? Maybe A24 could find something with him and really run with it. Who can say? Keeping it moving here. How about Emerald Fennell's follow up to Promising Young Woman, an awards contender 2 years ago? This will be Saltburn, starring a who's who, I would say. Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, Rosamund Pike, Richard E. Grant, and Carey Mulligan. That's a movie for MGM and Amazon, and probably is the best chance, assuming the movie's good, probably the best chance Amazon has ever had in the Oscar race. Netflix, of course, has been in the mix, hasn't won Best Picture yet, but Netflix has had lots of big contenders for years now at this point. Apple surprisingly won 2 years ago with Coda, but Amazon has really been out of sorts in award season, but perhaps Saltburn could be the first thing to really change that. A bunch of other stuff we have the knowledge, though, too. How about Rachel Morrison's Flint Strong? Rachel Morrison is a cinematographer. This is her directorial debut here with a movie written by Barry Jenkins and starring Brian Tyree Henry. A lot of pedigree there for sure. Of course, Barry Jenkins goes without saying. Tyree Henry just got nominated, surprisingly, with supporting actors. So if you're picking actors that could like become fixtures and perhaps try and win something soon, I think Tyree Henry is certainly a big contender for that. Another movie that's not dated but seems like it's been filmed and seems like it'd be in this award season would be The Bike Riders from Jeff Nichols, his first movie in so long since Loving came out several years ago, with Tom Hardy, Michael Shannon, Jodie Comer, and Austin Butler. Another chance for Austin Butler to go back to back with awards acting nominations, I think. In December, we have Leave the World Behind coming out from Sam Esmail. Sam Esmail, making a film after doing tons of TV work for some time. This, of course, is Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, and Ethan Hawke. Definitely want to keep an eye on for sure. More stuff, though, for sure. How about Magazine Dreams? Huge reception out of Sundance, not necessarily for the movie itself, but for the performance of none other than Jonathan Majors. This is going to cap the Jonathan Majors 2023 experience. Of course, he was in Ant-Man. He was in Creed 3. But this will be the movie that gets him a acting Oscar nomination. I think if there's one actor to bet on for that nomination, I think it's this right now, as things stand. That's saying a lot because he's going up against people like Fassbender and Bradley Cooper and Leonardo DiCaprio. But I think this is it, and this is going to be the Major's year. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I think that nomination is incredibly safe. Can't wait for this movie to come out. It got picked up by Searchlight. No date yet, but Magazine Dreams, where Majors plays a bodybuilder. Really excited about it. Other Sundance stuff, just should acknowledge Eileen, starring Anne Hathaway, got a lot of love. Let's see. Oh, how about Netflix has a biopic from George C. Wolfe, who does that very well, of course. Rustin, starring Coleman Domingo. I think that one is in the mix. Real life person, Netflix behind it. Something to keep an eye on for sure. Firebrand is a historical drama, kind of under the radar, I think, but it's starring Alicia Vikander as Catherine Parr and Jude Law as Henry VIII. Just something to keep an eye on there. I love Vikander. I think she still makes great decisions, great choices, and we know how good and consistent Jude Law is. So, in all likelihood, not an Oscar movie, but perhaps down the line, who could say? Under the radar, I think, as well. There's this swimmer, Diane Nyad, getting a biopic from Netflix starring Annette Bening. The reason I think this is significant is because Annette Bening has wanted that Oscar the past few years. Think about movies like 20th Century Women and The Report. She's tried. She's really tried to get that nomination, and now she's playing a real person. She's got Netflix behind her. She'll campaign. Just saying. Keep an eye on this one, the Diane Nyad biopic. I don't know if it has a title yet. On the animated front, it's actually a pretty stacked year for like acclaimed filmmakers making animated films. You have Pixar back again with Elemental, Disney back again with Wish. Those are two original creations, cool. But of course, you have Lord and Miller back with the Spider Verse sequel, Across the Spider Verse. You have Hayao Miyazaki's return out of retirement for his final film at Studio Ghibli, How Do You Live? That versus Across the Spider Verse is probably like the death match when it comes to best animated feature in award season. That's to say nothing of Suzume coming out from Makoto Shinkai, who of course is the creator of Your Name and Weathering with You, two gigantic anime films, especially with Your Name. So I think it's a pretty loaded year for animation, which is fun. Some other stuff here. How about Barbie? Jeez, I should have said that already. Comes out the same day as Oppenheimer. Barbie from Greta Gerwig, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. If Barbie is really good and like super self-aware and self-referential and witty, you can't put anything past Greta in terms of her CV at this point as a filmmaker. You know, we I judged her when she decided to follow up Lady Bird with Little Women, and she fucked around and made the best version of Little Women ever in a world full of many versions of Little Women. I'm expecting Barbie to be good. Does that mean it resonates with the Oscars and the awards crowd? Not necessarily, but given the pedigree here, and the acting pedigree is no joke either, we should not sleep on Barbie. I'll leave it at that. How about Todd Haynes' new movie, May December, starring Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore? Sure. How about Luca Guadagnino's new film, Challengers, starring Zendaya? Sure. Challengers, though, is coming out in August, which is kind of a questionable release date for something with awards aspirations, but Luca, Zendaya, worth acknowledging for sure. Some stuff out of Sundance as well. How about Passages, starring Franz Rogowski and Ben Whishaw? I think that one maybe a sneaky contender for this. I think it was arguably like the most celebrated movie out of Sundance 2023. And Franz Rogowski has kind of been like the secret weapon of like European filmmaking for some time. And he hasn't really blown up yet, in the United States. But and I don't know, this is necessarily the movie to do that either. But he's really good, and we know how good Ben Whishaw is, so keep an eye on that. Also, Netflix picked up out of Sundance 2023 Fair Play, which is kind of like an erotic thriller movie with Alden Ehrenreich and Phoebe Dwayner. Um, that movie was supposed to be excellent out of Sundance, and it's going to come out, second half of the year. So I'm excited about that one. Hard to imagine like that being the Netflix movie that breaks through, given they have a lot of contenders this year. But keep an eye on it for sure. Um, let's see, anything else? I mean, like I said, it's like 40 movies right here. Um, yeah, I think that's it. It's a bunch of A24 stuff, bunch of just celebrated filmmakers and celebrated actors. Like we got a big year. Oh, and one thing that hard to say this is going to come out this year for this award season, but Steve McQueen, his next film, following up the Small Axe series he did for Prime, his next film is Blitz, a World War II film starring Saoirse Ronan. That is filming right now, so it's not done. Given it's a war film with some bombing, I don't know. Maybe there's a long post process. So don't necessarily know if it's this award season yet. If it is, it's going to come out like December, January time because they clearly got to work on it still. But Steve McQueen goes without saying, obviously. Saoirse Ronan, 4 acting nominations before the age of 30, goes without saying. If that comes out, that is a contender. But maybe that's the next award season. Not sure yet. But that's a lot of movies. That's not going. There's going to be stuff that's nominated across the categories that I didn't acknowledge. That's just how it goes. But I feel like I outlined a good amount of them, and assuming a lot of that stuff does in fact come out as I expect it to, we'll get a good, purview of it. So I think it's a pretty loaded year. Think about Best Actor, for example, with Bradley Cooper and Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonathan Majors and Adam Driver. It's a loaded name list of who's who. It's really exciting. Directing talent, so much to think about there. Um, but yeah, let me know. What are you most excited about from that list? What do you think is the best lock for Oscar nomination at this point? Again, it's early, so I'm not going to hold you to it, but let me know. What did you think about that list? Like, what is your pick? And for more movie reviews, more Oscar predictions, award season talk, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.